Hello, Judge Relph. How are you today?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Really good. Why don't you have a seat? And before you begin, I see you brought a guest with you. So why don't you introduce him?
Yes, I brought my husband Darren with me. He's been with me all along the way. I think several of the commissioners have met him, so I can't get rid of him.
We don't expect you to.
I really don't want to.
Why don't you begin your opening remarks?
Well, good afternoon. Other than being in the hot seat today, it's nice to see everybody again. I had the opportunity to visit with most of you several times already, so out of respect for your time and your schedule and in consideration of the time we've already spent together, I'll try to keep my remarks fairly short. As you're all aware, my path to this spot started off like several others before you about 30 years ago. However, my path was not linear like most of those. Instead of going to undergraduate school and then law school, I went to nursing school. And the next 15 years of my young adulthood were spent practicing as a registered nurse in acute care settings such as ER, OB, and med-surg, amongst others. And I finished up my nursing career as the administrator of a home health agency. That 15 years was very formidable to me. I believe that it gave me a perspective on life that is perhaps different than if I had chosen to make the direct route to law first as a young adult. It also cultivated within me a sincere compassion and empathy and concern for individuals and families going through difficult times. Of course, there are the obvious things like the medical knowledge that I gained and the more experiential learning that I obtained in areas such as regulatory compliance, standards of care, human resources management, financial management issues that surprisingly come before me in a huge variety of situations even today. So it was a very good time of my life that I'm thankful for. I shared with you all my aha moment more in detail the last time I interviewed before all of you, so I will, but in the sake of time today, I will just say that there was a nudge from above after about 15 years that I needed to get on and do some personal growth. So I went back to school, got my Bachelor's of Science in Healthcare Management, and then, not being one to shy away from a challenge, decided to get into law school. So with 4 kids still at home, 2 in elementary and 2 in high school, I enrolled in law school. And that being before the days of podcasts or any online courses, I spent over 3 hours a day on the road driving back and forth and completed that in 2.5 years. My evenings were spent sneaking and studying where I could around ball games and band concerts and scouts, but we made it. Sometimes better than others, but we made it. After I graduated, I joined the Chambers Law Firm in Corydon, which soon thereafter became the Chambers and Relph Law Firm. I grew a successful general practice there in the small town county seat. I did a lot of family law, of all types of family law matters, criminal defense, juvenile work, real estate transactions, probate, all the different types of things that you see in a general practice. I'm very thankful for that time. I had no idea as I was doing that how helpful that would be to me in the future, but it turns out it really was. In 2014, I was encouraged to and did apply to the district court bench in the 5B Judicial District. I was fortunate enough to be appointed that time by Governor Branstad. I do practice, as I said, in 5B, which is the 9 southernmost counties in about the middle third of the state. I do have the opportunity and fortune also to come up to 5A and 5C and practice or preside in some of the more metropolitan areas and see a different types of cases there sometimes than what I might see in the southern counties. I'm also the backup juvenile judge for the 5B Judicial District. And so I see some juvenile cases in 5B, and once in a while they assign me to some juvenile cases in 5A as well. I have found that the percentage and types of cases that I saw both in my practice and in my position as a district court judge are very similar in types and in percentages, which has been very helpful to me. So I really enjoy and appreciate my position as a district court judge, and so I've been asked on occasion, why is it that you're seeking an appellate position? And my driver there has really been the same, whether it's been the last 2 times I was before you or whether it's this time. It hasn't changed, and that's to be of greater service to the judiciaries throughout the state of Iowa. This is a different position, I know, but I still believe that it's a different and a way I can be of higher service. And related to that, I'm seeking appellate experience, particularly the opportunity to dive into some weightier issues that I don't get the opportunity to necessarily see in the district court, some more constitutional issues and perhaps some statutory interpretation matters. And besides that, I've been well informed by some individuals in the know that it's a pretty nice position with a great group of colleagues that work collegially and collaboratively, and a nice healthy work environment, and I think we all aspire to that. So with those things in mind, I hope that you will keep those perhaps unique and different characteristics that I have brought to the table in mind while you're deliberating and choosing your nominees, and I'm hopeful that you will select me for one.
Thank you very much, Judge. We'll start the question with Ms. Pearson.
Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your application. First of all, just want to compliment you on your career progression, various fields and so forth, and applying for this position. And you've given us a good overview, but if you had to summarize and someone asked you, like, what are the top 3 skills that you feel immediately you would be able to bring if you were appointed to this court, what would they be?
I think my collegiality, ability to work well with others and collaborate. I am a self-starter. I'm used to being out there pretty much on my own, working independently. And my ability to analyze the issues and research and apply the law.
Thank you.
I have no questions.
Ms. Bowden? Mr. Berger?
No questions?
Good, everybody knows what I'm doing now, so beat me to it. Mr. Diaz?
No questions. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Ms. Law?
It was fun to watch your opening statement and watch your husband's expressions. You can see how proud he is of you. So I'm glad you brought him along today. What do you, in particular, do you think your experience on the bench in a rural area and as being a rural practice attorney might lend to your experience on the appellate court?
Well, being rural does give you a different perspective. Different, but you still have to apply the law the same. I think it just enriches and informs the decision-making, particularly when matters come up for you that perhaps are unique to rural areas, or just my familiarity with individuals and people who live in those areas, their mindsets, things that happen differently in the rural courts than they might have in larger areas. Just being able to keep those things in mind at the time.
Thank you.
Mr. Bevel?
No questions.
Mr. Sukup?
No questions.
Ms. Sinclair?
No questions.
Ms. Diekma?
Thank you, Judge. One of the sentences in your application caught my eye, where you say, I care about the public's perception of the court and its processes. When you talk about that, as a judge, how do you think you can assist in the perception of the court?
Well, what I do now when I'm on the bench is I make sure that when I am out either sentencing somebody or presiding over maybe a bench trial in a family law case or whatever type of case it might be, is I make a point to talk directly, just like I am to you, to those individuals who I'm addressing, and explain to them why I'm deciding something a certain way, explaining that perhaps well, not perhaps, explaining that I am bound by the law, and this is why this decision has to be a certain way. Also, just talking to people, whether it's at presentations to the public, just conveying myself in a manner that shows that judges are regular people. We can be warm and caring despite what they might think, and that we apply the law fairly and equally to everyone.
Thank you.
Mr. Goodman?
Thank you. Judge, thank you for your application. I've asked this question of a number of district court judges and would be interested in your views. We have 12 judges that have applied for this position and 18 others who are lawyers, either with the government or in private practice. What weight would you recommend we give generically to the position of district court judge versus someone who has practiced in another capacity to filling these two positions? And I guess what I'm asking, there's no doubt it's a benefit. Should it be a prerequisite or something that would be presumptive in terms of qualifying someone to serve on the Supreme Court? And I'd be interested in your views on that.
I don't believe it should be a prerequisite. I believe that each of us candidates should be viewed on our own merits, and there might be somebody who is a district court judge who is superior to others, and there might be somebody who is not, who is superior. So I think we all need to be considered individually.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Bloom?
Yeah, I have a question, but I'm gonna expose probably my own ignorance of the Iowa judicial system here. So we have candidates for this job who have come from like legal aid backgrounds, juvenile court, public defender's office, and there's an argument there that, and this, I don't know if this applies only to like larger metro areas and it's different in rural courts, but the argument is that even the district court judges are sort of above this area of the law that they're dealing with. And so their argument will be, when they, and they haven't presented yet, I don't want to put words in their mouth, that they're most qualified to be on the Court of Appeals because a large part of the docket relates to what they do every day, and they know that law extremely well, even though they may not know civil law. So is it different in the rural areas? I mean, are you as a district court judge sort of above what they're talking about in terms of juvenile law, drug courts, or the areas where we've got specialized court capabilities?
You know, I think they're going to, I've not been in on the Court of Appeals before, so it's impossible for me to know. But I think that no matter who is selected for these positions, they're going to have areas that they're going to have to learn that they don't know much about. Because I'm a district court judge, I have had the fortune to see a wide variety, but I'm not going to pretend to have seen it all and know that there are things that I'm going to have to see for the first time and educate myself about. So, and I think all of the applicants, if they were honest, would admit that, I would hope.
Ms. Conover?
No questions.
Mrs. Roberts?
No questions.
Ms. O'Brien?
Judge Relph, could you give us an idea of the variety and volume of work that you do as a district court judge? And then contrast that with what you anticipate a workday would be like at the Court of Appeals?
The variety of my work is tremendous. In our court service days, right now I am presiding over 3 counties primarily, but you might catch me in any of the 16 counties of the 5th Judicial District. On our court service days, which I usually have 2 or 3 a week, our mornings are criminal dockets, motion hearings, pretrial conferences, arraignments, sentencings, pleas, things like that. The afternoon is a civil docket, which might be family law, anything civil, probate, real estate, all of those things. Motions that are less than 30 minutes long, again, pretrial conferences, temporary matters, things like that. So those are full days in court service. The days that are not court service, you would find me in a trial someplace, whether that's a bench trial or a jury trial. Or once in a while, we'll get ruling days, and we get to rule on those bench trials that we presided over. In the rural, where it's one judge in the courthouse usually, so you have to be self-motivated to get yourself there on time, work on your rulings, get those out on time. You don't have colleagues down the hall to lean on, anything like that. So, and I gave you the percentages, criminal in the morning. The trials, we really have more civil bench trials than we do jury trials, but I think that gives you an idea. As opposed to the appellate court, I would anticipate, again, I've not been here, I hope to be, but I would have to rely on that self-starter, motivate myself, which isn't a problem, to work diligently, research, writing. The flow process, I would have to, of course, accommodate to or acclimate to and get used to. That would be a learning curve. Learning to utilize staff available to me, because that would be something fairly new. My research and writing now is pretty much my own. I don't have anybody to help me out with that. As far as the percentages, from what I've read, I believe that the percentages of types of cases would be fairly similar to what I'm seeing now.
So if you were to estimate the number of different cases that you would address on a court service day, it sounds like it could be more than 10.
Oh, yes, it varies. Our docket could be a slow docket, and there might be 10 on a slow day, or it could be a very busy docket, and there might be 30. It just really varies. On the county, some counties are slower, some counties are busier.
Mr. Horbach?
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Oh, you've elevated me to Chief Justice.
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah. Always looking for a vote. I think that we all would agree that every applicant has their individual talents, and so every applicant I've assigned a word to their demeanor, and your word is calming. Every time I talk to you, I find you very calming, and I think that that's a great asset as a district judge. I could see you sentencing a defendant and he just saying, okay.
Well, sometimes.
How does that calming, if you agree that is a trait that you have, how does that transpire to you being a Court of Appeals judge?
Well, on the Court of Appeals, you have to work in a panel, and you have to be able to discuss the cases, give your argument for your side, perhaps, within your group. So in addition to being calm, I'd have to be persuasive as well. In oral arguments, I think that calm demeanor would come into play just like it does in the district courtroom, as you're listening to the arguments and asking questions, and maybe not trying to tip your hat, but just working collegially with the panel. I think it would be beneficial.
Mr. Gray?
Judge, do I understand, you're in District 5C? Is that
5B.
5B, and you do handle probate issues, correct?
Yes.
Do I understand, though, in Polk County, there's actually a probate judge that does that, and that's the only judge that handles probate?
That's my understanding as well,
All
yes.
right. My other quick question is, did you read the book Dope Sick that I recommended?
I did. Actually, I listened to it on Audible. So, I spent a lot of time on the road, so I listened to it. I had to hit, I want to hear that again. So, yes, I did.
Was it helpful?
It was very helpful, very enlightening. It really was. I think everybody should. It's a great book.
Thank you.
Judge, thank you very much. Does anybody have a question? We have a minute left. And seeing none, I really appreciate you coming today, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your
all.
Honor.
Thank you.